Amazing.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the work session for Payson City Council. July the 2nd, I think it is, 5:30. Do we need to say who's present or are you all okay there? Okay, we'll turn the time over to Kathy or to Dave. Which one?
Kathy. So the reason we're meeting tonight is to go over some of the proposed changes to the tentative budget that we're going to bring forward for the final budget adoption. And there's several of them, but we've tried to mitigate some of them, so. And I'm just gonna kind of go through the list, and if we have comments or concerns, now's the time to tell us that that's not gonna work, and we pull it out, we won't deal with it.
Wait,
So-
sorry Kathy, just, we do have a public hearing in the first meeting in August. Where we go through all this, but with some of these changes, and there's quite a few rollovers. That are not getting done, by the end of this last budget year that ended a couple days ago. So yeah, let's have discussion on them, but we also will have a public hearing too. To talk about everything in the whole budget. Sorry.
No problem. No, that's great. So the first thing is we added the fire station design, 400,000 in the capital fund. We increased the property tax revenue to reflect potential increase for the debt service for the fire station. We rolled over a B&C project, 109,000 in repair and maintenance to finish, just so we can finish this project.
Which
and I
project?
can't remember what the two projects are. Can you remind me?
Got three going, we've got, Little Creek, curb and gutter, third south and first north.
And this is what's left of it. You need to roll it over and
Yeah.
finish it.
Then we-
already budgeted. Yes.
It was budgeted in the budget that just expired June 30th.
And then we rolled over another B&C project for $800,000. We balanced some of these rollovers by reducing miscellaneous projects, so we had kind of a line item that just said miscellaneous. We took some money from that to try and mitigate the impact of rolling these over. We rolled over 81,300 for a 300 south storm drain. In order to do this and try and balance out the budget, let me just give a disclaimer. So we make projections on fund balance. And that's kind of, we take our projections on fund balance, add projected revenues, and that's money we have to balance the budget. Sometimes when we. When we roll projects over after we've set the budget, that means we have to find a way to pay for it. Because if we added new projects plus rolled over, we just don't have the funds. That's why we're trying to mitigate some of these. So in order to balance the storm drain, we reduced the transfer to the general fund to help fund this project. We also temporarily removed the storm drain master plan expense. Excuse me, we added $33,000 to storm drain for storm drain rate study. We're hoping that we can get these rate studies going. What we're finding is just, we don't have enough revenue to complete these projects. They're native projects, but we're just we're down to brass tacks on fund balance. We're just on margins, so it's kind of worrisome. We rolled over the box culvert project in storm drain, 990,000. That is grant funded, so that pays for itself. There was a slight payroll adjustment to move the merit increase. Originally, we had budgeted for January. We moved it back to October. There was an offset to that because in looking through the payroll budget, I adjusted the accrual formula. So an accrual is basically any expenses that come in July, the expenses incurred in June, but we pay in July. We have to move those back, including payroll. So we do a slight budget for that accrual amount. And I adjusted that accrual amount, and that helped offset the payroll adjustment. Then
Is the payroll adjustment still slated at 6%?
yes.
Yeah.
So we added debt service for the fire station. We adjusted the Scottish Festival budget. They had increased revenue more than they thought, more than we thought. So we adjusted the expenditures to offset that. So it wasn't use of fund reserves, it was just to adjust those two amounts. We adjusted the library budget for the balance of the feasibility study. So we rolled over another $9,000 for that. We adjusted the library budget for repair and maintenance, $5,000. We updated the revolving loan amortizations with actual amounts. So basically, when we budget for loans out of the revolving loan fund, we use estimates, like 35,000 or something like that. When the actuals come through, we adjust the loan, so that's gonna have a slight impact on the debt service of those loans. $80,000 was added for the sewer dump body from the budget adjustment from the 18. We adjust the golf carts, in the revolving loan. So traditionally, we've done revolving loan funds over 5 years. But for 2026 going forward, we said we're gonna only do it over 3 years, so those loans aren't lagging and creating problems. So that's an adjustment. We added a full-time parks position. We adjusted the engineering subscription budget to cover increased cost of software. I'm going fast, so if you have questions or comments, just stop me. We adjusted the victim advocate revenue downward, so a good portion of the victim advocate is budgeted through grants. And Ruthie was told that over, I don't know what period of time, those grants are starting to decrease. So this is the decrease in that grant. We added the Nebo Belt route betterment design of $90,000, and we're splitting that between sewer and water and PI. We added $600 for the Casell conference for utility staff. And the reason I added that one, and the reason I did is because in going to these conferences, you can kind of benchmark off other people's experience, learn what's new in the software, and I think we can simplify the billing process. It's tedious right now, and I'd like Cheryl not to have to work so hard in that, so that's why I added that. We rolled over the PI bond project for $600,000 and the water SCADA system for $283,000. In order to balance that, we reduced professional services, $272,000 to cover a portion of the water projects. We added a police fingerprint machine for $7,500. Apparently their machine broke, something. We added economic development studies of $115,000 in the mayor and council budget for the sports complex. We rolled over one golf water filter and added one additional filter. And what Greg is reporting, Greg Matson, is that they're taking a lot of time trying to keep those filters clean, and they just need a couple new ones. We added $25,000 for expenditures for the Onion Days concert, and that expense will be $25,000, and that means that the hospital is wanting us to take over that program. So that's just adjusting for that. We added $10,000 for Grand Fondo. We updated workers' compensation allocation throughout the budget. So how we.
What's Grand Fondo?
Race.
Bike race with the Adventure Day.
Oh, okay.
Bike race, Grand Fondo National Series.
One thing about the hospital said they would still help sponsor that.
So when we get the workers' compensation quote, we take all the department's payroll in the city and we allocate that to the workers' comp. So when there's any changes to the payroll budgets at all, it kind of shifts that between the budgets. It doesn't change the bottom line, but it does change some of the budgets. So that's why I brought that forward. In the general fund, the use of fund reserves will go from $3,164,344 to $3,229,365. That's an increase of about $207,000. We have questions?
Can I just explain a little bit more about the hospital? So the hospital's been taking care of the free concert we have for Onion Days for a long time. I know Sue's retiring, who did a lot of the work. She still says she would be willing to help us, but Kevin contacted me and said that the new hierarchy, I guess, of HCA, their parent company, they don't like the way this has been done, where Mountain View Hospital would cut all these checks. Like they'll pay for the artists, they'll pay for the popcorn, all the stuff. We get a lot of stuff donated, but their company now, their administration is saying, look, it needs to be more like, hey, you cut a check to Payson City, and And so you're supporting that, but you're not doing all the payments. So we're actually gonna do that this time. He sent me the contract for the new artist for this time.
For this later date.
Yeah, and so they're gonna transfer all the money. They had some left over from last year. And what they're gonna provide, we provide 15,000 or maybe 20. So they're gonna transfer that to us. They paid the down payment on the artist. We have to pay, probably on Monday, we have to pay the extra 30,000, 31,000, I think, but we should have money to cover all that, but he said, we still wanna support Onion Days, and we're still gonna be a supporter of this concert, but it has to kind of swing to the city to be in charge of doing that. We've usually just let them do it, and we give money to them and they take care of all the expenses.
So we'll be taking care of it instead of them.
We'll be doing the
So
expenses.
we'll have the money from them as well.
I'm a little concerned that, you know, when Kevin retires, Sue retires, that they might not. And then we have to decide as a city council, do we want to continue to do a free concert? Do we change, you know, the type of music? Do we try to get more money and up the artists that we bring in? Do we
Can we
charge?
book the Frontier Marshals to come?
Yeah. Or do-
Yeah, we'll do it for 30,000.
Do we sell tickets for maybe reserve seating up front and then, you know, anyway, there's a lot of options we can do. This year we'll do like we've been doing, but we're gonna pay some of those expenses.
Who's coming this year?
Chris Cagle.
Hopefully going for Devlin.
Anytime they announce it, I never know who they are. I'm not a big.
I don't know any of
They usually always have one or two popular songs.
Looks like I didn't clear my admin machine. I apologize. It's only 65,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference there is 65.
I'm sorry.
Good job.
Almost,
almost
zero. That's called managing expectations.
Anyway, because you adopted the tentative budget first meeting in May. And since then to now, we will have the public hearing, but there was a lot of changes, a lot of them are rollovers, which that happens. But we just wanted to put them here so there's no surprises in August, and if there's concerns, we want to hear about them. We want to do what the city council wants, but these were the changes that have happened since the tentative budget.
And I'm just gonna mention, we do have a couple budgets. We're just gonna watch really closely and slow down as it looks like. Problem children, our storm drain, water.
That'd be the leader of. Stop right there.
That's why I went back.
But right now, it's water, storm, and BNC. Those are tight budgets right now. We would like to build up a fund balance. We're using almost all the fund balance, so we're gonna watch those budgets very closely. Coming into this next year.
And I know on the first page, you talked about we increased some of the property tax in anticipation of council doing that. The council decides not to do that. We're fine. We'll do whatever the council wants, but we kind of talked about taking out of the reserve 5 million to pay half of that, and then the property tax for the other half, or at least the payment. So that's kind of what we talked about as a council, so that's what she did, but it's totally up to the council when we have that public hearing, and we'll follow whatever the council wants to do. If we need to adjust, we adjust.
Yeah, the bottom line is it's expensive to run the city. And just like people have their own budgets, we have a budget we have to keep healthy too, so.
I think it's important that we use some of that fund balance on the fire station though, rather than bonding for the whole thing.
Yep.
Needs a good faith effort and show the residents that, hey, we've been saving, we're gonna pay, put a healthy down payment on it
I think it's a good.
with no interest. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess I still I wanna gauge the other council members' appetite on the payroll, we're slated at 6%. I feel that's just a touch too high. I'd like to do 3% COLA and a 2.25% merit.
I would like the merit higher.
I would too.
I really do. Because I think you should pay the ones that are that are the workers. I mean, I shouldn't say that. They're unworkers, but you have some that deserve it way more than others. They shouldn't get it just because they've been here for 25 years.
That's how
They
you
have
get
to
the,
earn it.
that's how you get the best and keep the best.
It is.
And so,
So what
I agree
number
with
do you guys
Teresa.
have in mind?
What?
What number do you guys have in mind?
Well, I agree with you, but I think it should be 3% merit and 2.2
COLA.
COLA.
We left it at 6 because we met individually with a lot of you, and it seemed like the majority of you said we're fine with how we go forward. I know Councilman Rowley wanted to lower that a little bit, and it's totally up to the council.
You know, the bottom line is we don't want to be held hostage by our employees. There's no two ways about that, but we want to make sure we treat them right so that they don't wander. And yeah, there's gonna be some that aren't as productive as others, but on the whole, we've got some great employees.
I agree, and I want Payson City to be competitive, but this, yeah, the 6% just seemed big to me. It would be the third biggest we've ever done. So that's where I was at with those numbers, especially as the residents' budgets are getting so tight too. And we're increasing utilities and taxes, and I just wanted to be able to show the residents that we're trying to tighten our belts too.
I think that's reasonable. I think it's a reasonable request.
But I think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah, just flip it.
Yeah, flip it.
And I'm fine with the 3 and 3.
I need to bring something up. Why I was late?
Why?
Okay, so I'm down there on 8 South,
You can't get through 8 South
Okay,
right now,
so
it's really
listen,
bad traffic at this
coming
time.
off the freeway,
Travel traffic.
you get 50 cars.
Yeah.
Going east, you get 5. How come we haven't changed that?
We talked to you, Don, about it.
It's a
couple
state
weeks ago, Robert
And
did.
if you have one diesel,
Travis did.
it's one diesel. I had to wait for 6 lights. I think a minute.
We
to
can
get
forward you
50
their
or
email that
60.
said they won't touch it unless the overpass gets wide.
I talked, Teresa, I talked to Travis, and he talked to you, Don, so, but they said they can't do anything about it.
Why can't, I know that they can change how
I will
many.
forward you their email.
They do need to widen the road, but that's just.
This-
Yeah,
Send them on.
Leave it. And then if somebody doesn't get going, then it's only 2 cars.
Yeah, that's right.
And they sit there so long, they start playing on their
That's
phones.
it. That's it.
And
I don't know how many times I've-
the turn lane to go south,
Yeah.
they get a whole bunch of cars.
Yep,
So we good with what Kathy
that's why I was
presented?
late. Yeah, I guess we just have to
It's
tighten
so-
our belts a little bit and
Well, it's those things we need to function as a city.
So is that,
I think we are.
just to clarify, that's a council decision, change the merit to 3 and the COLA to 2.25?
I
Sounds
like
like
that.
we
What
have
do you guys
We're
think?
doing 2.5,
Four,
why don't we just do
maybe
2?
3, I don't know.
2.2.
What's the
What was
figure?
inflation last year? What was?
Yeah, what was,
Well, COLA is supposed to accommodate the consumer price
Cost of
index.
living.
off the cost
So
of
what
living.
was the CPI?
It was 2.9 something, so it was right around 3, that's why we put 3.
That's why we could show.
That's how much the cost of living increased.
Does it ever decrease?
no,
Not.
Not very young.
not in our lifetimes.
I keep.
But like 2 years ago, it was over 10.
So
So we couldn't give that.
So I do have a question on the merit then, so, and I'm fine with the 3 and 3, but on the merit. If somebody's 0 and somebody's 3, are we gonna give somebody 4 or 5, or are we gonna stick to the 0, 3, so we're really only paying 2% or something like that? Oh, does that make sense? Cause if you do that, then you're not gonna be the 6%.
I know that not everyone will get the 3, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
that's what I'm
think
saying.
most people will get 2.8.
I
Or
hope
maybe
not,
one.
I hope not, cause then it's not working.
Or maybe
If
0.
it's 2.8 to 3, then it's not working. It's got.
But I think we have a lot of good people to reward though too. I really
Right.
do.
Just got one thing to say about the merit thing is. If we're gonna do that, I think you need to put the expectations up front. Cause it does not go over well when. At the very end of the year, you're like, oh, we're gonna have an evaluation, and then you pull out all these standards that they're like, that would have been nice to know. Beforehand,
I agree with that.
cause there's
We need to
nothing
know.
that they can't live up to a standard that they didn't know about beforehand. So I just wanna.
Like a rubric of.
So can I say something to that too? I know that superintendents have talked to employees and told them what they expect. But some of the employees still don't get to that expectation. That's when we talk about, I mean, it does need to be in writing though, totally, so they understand.
Mhm.
But that. There
Well,
have been
that's
people
what I'm saying,
talked to,
because I know
yeah.
there's some departments that don't Yeah, I was in one of them when it was like, oh, we're gonna have this review. I'm like, oh, it would have been nice to know
What's
what's
expected of you.
expected, what you're looking for. So,
Yeah, baseline and then above expectations.
So who does that, you? Or does each superintendent?
Well, I think a job description, some of it. Goes over that, right now. So I would say that could be the baseline for sure, as if you're meeting the job expectations and the job description, then that would be your base, and then I guess anything above that would be what you're talking about.
And it's not like this is something new. We've had evaluations forever.
Yeah.
And we evaluate people, but we also, I know during COVID and some of that, it was hard to keep up with the inflation and everything like that. So there are years where we'd say, we just gotta give what we budgeted because to keep people up and where they should be.
Yeah.
But we have had evaluations for a long time.
Based on the inflation reduction, I think it's not unreasonable to give them the 3%, because that's where it's at.
I think the rubric's a good idea. Put something together, just general. This is what Payson City expects out of you. We expect you to be where you're assigned, working, you know, well-groomed, whatever it might be. On task, if you're in the public, this is definitely where you
Yeah.
know,
And if you're.
those are standards that it doesn't matter which department you're in, you got certain standards to live up to. And then you could throw work ethics in there and,
yeah, I think I have an old. That was pretty general.
yeah. And I mean, it's just sometimes it's good to get the refresher.
Well, I know for sure, when we had a water leak up at the Spring Lake Elementary, it was the pressurized water system, and it was leaking pretty good. And was able to get a hold of Cam, and he got a hold of the guy that's on call. I didn't get away from the school before he got that. So they do respond very well.
I think they need to be rewarded for it. I know as a teacher, they come in, we have to sit down with our administrator and they go over what they're gonna look for before an evaluation, and then they come in, and then we're evaluated. So we're not surprised by anything. I mean, that's all I'm saying is give them a little heads up and
Well, based
so go
on,
with it. But I'm okay with the 3% and 3%. I know some others are worried it seems a little high. And I don't know, like to give the full 6% to those that are earning it and go 4.5% to those that maybe need a little bit of a shaking up.
I think the 3 and 3, although I can see both sides of the equation, I think 3 and 3 is good because of the fact that 3 will probably be lower for, on the incentive.
Well, it's not worth it if it's not more than some.
Yeah, exactly right. So I think it takes care of itself. It brings us down the rate that maybe it should be.
I think when I had my meeting, what was it I suggested, if somebody got the full 3%, their supervisor had to go watch them work. So nobody would want it,
Got lots of body meetings you can come watch.
I know, I mean,
Got thousands and thousands of them, Brett.
yours is a different scenario, you're a specialty group right there. As long as they're not getting road rage and drunk driving, then we're pretty good, compared to some cities.
Yes, that's.
So what's the gen?
We'll do whatever the council wants.
2.9 and 3. If inflation is 2.9.
Math hard, no.
Yes, you should be getting that.
Ryan's gonna turn into an auctioneer here.
You got your 1.95.
The consensus, so I can put.
Yeah, we really appreciate anything.
We can't do a motion.
Oh, I can't do a motion, can't really do a straw poll, it's kind of
No,
just.
it's straw poll, I think.
Yeah, there's no motions here. We just want to know if you want it, the cost of living less than 3, let us know, or.
Should we move forward this way, or should we adjust that rate for the public hearing in August? That's really the question.
I think Brett and I are fine and the
Out of 3.
3 or 1 of them.
One a little bit.
So I guess we go a little bit lower.
Cost of living
That's
down.
what it's all about.
So which way is it going?
Middle 2.75 and 3.
So merit to 3 and then the full on merit.
Merit
Yeah,
3.
keep
Color
merit
liquid.
rate.
How about you
2.2.
compromise a little bit, 2.5? So
On.
On the
on
COLA,
the COLA.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll go 2.5. You got me.
Do I hear 2.65?
Yeah, 2.5. 2.5 COLA, 3% merit. Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better.
You can sleep at night.
Any,
I can, finally.
any other comments you want on any other budget item? And if not, you've got the handout. If you have some concerns, reach out to Robert, myself, Kathy. We'll be ready for the public hearings in August.
And we'll see further adjustments in the payroll. So it won't be big, but we'll adjust that.
Okay, so that covers it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
do I need to adjourn, or are we okay?
We just go to the others.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the delay. It's 5 after 6. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the Payson City Council meeting for July the 2nd. And then once again, thank you for being here. We just exited out of a 2026 fiscal year budget. So we're just a little bit late starting this meeting. We'll go ahead and have Council Moss open this meeting with prayer.
Our dear and kind Father in heaven, we come to thee at this time during our city council meeting with gratitude in our hearts for living in such a wonderful place. We ask thee to please guide us in all of our decisions and communications and anything else that goes on. And please help us to make the wisest and best decisions. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Ann. We'll turn some time over for the pledge to Council Hyatt.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, we'll be moving on to D, the consent agenda. Approval of the June 18th, 2025 City Council minutes. Unless there's any discussion on those minutes, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Oh, we got twinners. Which one wants to take it?
She can take it.
Okay.
Stop it.
Council Hyatt. I did the second. Okay. Have a motion been seconded. Roll call vote starting with Council Christensen,
Yes.
Council Hewlett.
Yes.
Council Rowley,
Yes.
Council Moss.
Yes.
Council Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on again to E petitions, yard of the month, June and July. Councilmember Moss, you're up.
Do I need to come down there?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mayor and Council, I present, we'll do June 1st. The June yard of the month is to Steve and Jill Terry. Come on up. And they get a certificate and a $100 gift card to Olson's. So you're welcome. Congratulations.
We'd like you to get your picture, but we'll do the July 1st, then we'll do them
Okay.
take one after the other.
Okay, and the Payson City Yard of the Month for July goes to Laura Johnston. And you get the same thing. You're welcome.
Okay, let's do the June, whichever one you want to do first.
We'll do June first.
Yeah.
We can just do it all at once. Oh, the mayor says we're doing them separate.
It's a separate award.
All right. Awesome. You know what, I keep my yard looking really bad, so his looks better.
Okay, number 2. Introduction oath of office prosecuting attorney Brandon Daly and Jeffrey Sewell. Brandon?
Council, I would like to introduce you to our new prosecuting attorney. His name is Jeffrey Sewell. I know it looks like Sewell, but it's pronounced Sewell.
Sewell? Sorry,
He comes to
I just read it how I saw it.
from Mexico City via the FBI, where he just retired from the FBI with 20 years experience there. And so now he and his wife are moving to Payson from Houston. Mexico City is where he was working before June 23rd. And so he comes from Mexico City to Payson. So he's been working hard with me. I'm glad he's still here because on his first week we did several suppression hearings, bench trials, and a justification hearing that's new in a newer law. So the fact that he's still here is a great sign. So if you claim self-defense in any class A or higher, you can go to a hearing where you can claim that self-defense, and it's on the burden is on the city to prove by clear and convincing evidence that self-defense does not apply. So it's a newer law that we're still exploring, and he stuck through that. So great sign.
Jeffrey, we're glad you're here, especially with someone with your experience and background. This is excellent.
And then since Judge Jewell is on vacation, I believe Kim is going to administer the oath. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Utah, and the laws and ordinances of the state of Utah, and the laws and ordinances of the state of Utah. And I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Jeffrey, we want to get a picture with you when you get through signing what you got to sign.
Pictures. Why don't we just stay up?
So Jeffrey, do you have any ties to Utah? I mean, coming to Utah from Mexico City?
My wife was raised in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
I kept her away for 29 years. And,
So you brought it back done?
yeah, I'm not from Utah, but I got here as quick as I could.
Who is your wife? This whole time you were around up.
I'm only 39.
That's about the time I would graduate high school.
Sure. My chair in your way.
No, you're good.
Okay, number 3, 4 Bay Committee Annual Report. Kevin, are you here? There you are. I'd like to welcome Kevin Crook. He's the vice chair of the committee.
Yes. To Payson City Council regarding the annual accomplishments of the 4 Bay Committee, dear council members, over the past year, the 4 Bay Committee has made significant strides in enhancing and preserving our local trail system. Below is a summary of our key accomplishments. Drafted a conservation easement to protect natural habitat and ensure long-term sustainability of the 4 Bay area. Developed and opened 2 new trails, Loading Chute and Apple Tree Springs, and continued work on the trail to Big Tree. This expands access and recreational opportunities for the community by 1.5 additional miles. Contributed over 120 hours of volunteer service dedicated to trail maintenance, improvement, and stewardship. Initiated planning for additional trails and a bike park expansions to further enhance the trail network and connectivity. We're proud of the progress made and look forward to continued collaboration with the City Council to support outdoor recreation and conservation efforts in our community. Sincerely, the 4 Bay Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, council?
No
Kevin?
questions, but to the 4 Bay Committee, thank you so much for all of your dedication and service. That's one of the most beautiful assets we have in the city, and it runs so well because volunteers run it. And you guys put in a lot of time and energy, and I continue to marvel and be excited for what you guys are doing up there and what we're going to accomplish up there. So really make sure the committee knows how grateful we are.
Thank you. We appreciate your support as well.
I'm a member of that committee, and I really enjoy sitting there talking to them, and they take into account all the users, from people that walk to bikes, horses, and everything, trying to make sure that it stays the best that it can be. We're getting really close on our conservation easement, which will secure that as a place for years to come. So our grandkids can enjoy that as well. And I always look at that committee and think that they could do more. And as a council member, I wonder if they could take over more trails and different things throughout the city and kind of incorporate that and take away the 4 Bay title and make them trails and parks committee or something, so that we could use them and their knowledge a little bit better. And it does have a lot of wonderful members of the community that are part of it. So that's my 2 cents on that, but thank you.
Thank you.
We have a member, Adam Gower, you're here, so appreciate you coming and your participation. Okay, moving on to number 4. This will be the public forum. Anyone can speak. Please limit your time, if you will. Be cognizant of it. Let us know who you are. So if there's anybody that would like to take advantage of that time, please let us know by stepping up and speaking with us. Okay. Oh, come on up.
Hey, so my name's Richard Broadbent. I've been here for a few months now. We've gone through a number of issues that kind of were difficult for Payson probably to transition through. When I was here a month ago, we talked about Cal King company coming here and filming in Payson. One of the things that wasn't kind of maybe clarified was the Goofy Guy store, which I think is 20 North Main or South Main, was used in part of this production. But part of this production was also filmed at 40 South Main or 40 North Main. I'm just wondering, will you clarify for me who owns 40 North Main?
Is that our building?
Yeah, it's
It used to be
40
the
South Main.
40 South Main.
South Main, it was used to be the Utah Trike building, and also prior to that, the major one was Christensen's department store.
Yeah, Christensen's department store 30 years ago, back in the good old
Well,
days.
even more than that.
Right. So part of this material was filmed in 2021, 2020 in the Payson City buildings.
Payson City, well,
In a Payson City buildings, is that correct?
yeah, we leased it to them.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
You
Thanks
bet.
thanks for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak. You guys have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, Richard. Anyone else like to take advantage of the public forum? Not seeing anyone here. Is anyone online? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public forum. And go to number 5, staff reports. Any of the staff would like to address us at this time?
Mayor and council, I just have one. I attended in person and Travis and Jill attended online today our UDOT update about the interchange. They had a special request for you as city council members regarding betterments. We talked about that last time. They're asking maybe for like a ballpark on what you would consider spending for betterments, and I countered with that by saying, well, we would like an estimation from UDOT on what their baseline would be. Like if Payson City wasn't contributing anything for betterments, like what's the amount in dollars that UDOT would be spending on this project for fencing and street lighting and any utilities or landscaping and things like that, which I think would give you a better estimation of what additional supplemental betterments and funds we would need to come up with to achieve what your desires are for the betterments out there. So they're going to be working on that as soon as possible, and when that comes back to us, we'll present that to you again, just to get a little bit further clarification. So that project is moving forward, not without its share of challenges and concerns, but it is moving forward, and we're excited for that. And I just wanted to give you that update. So thanks.
I have something. So we talked about that. But what if it takes a couple years and prices increase 15%? So
It's always a challenge.
can that be put into that contract with them so that if the prices go up, they're still gonna pay that amount because like, oh, we can only do half of this because we don't have the rest of the money. Because
Yeah.
we ran into that as a city.
Right.
Over the last so many years, and I don't want to do that again. I want to make sure that if it doesn't get done for 5 years, and they only say, "Oh, I'm going to do 100,000," it costs you 250,000 in 5 years. We're not going to get hardly anything done. So how do we make sure that that gets done with the days, whatever the dollars are worth in the future?
Well, they do have a baseline responsibility.
Okay.
So no matter when it happens, that's why if we understand what that baseline cost is going to be, we can estimate. We might be able to negotiate and put in a contract with them to say, this is the amount that we're expecting to do. If costs escalate over time, we need to revisit that. But we understand that your baseline has to be X of product, not X of dollars.
They have a baseline they have to meet. They can't.
I know, but I just want to make sure that it's in there, that we can negotiate it if it's gonna be more money, because we didn't do that in the past, and then the city ends up eating it, and I don't want the city to eat it.
Yeah. And that's just the reality that things are never cheaper than they are today.
I know.
So
I can reassure you that we have great representation. I've been in many of those meetings, and sometimes I say things maybe a little aggressive, and sometimes the others do as well, but we're well represented.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Robert.
Mayor and council and public, just for your information and discussion with the mayor this week and with previous year precedents, we're closing the ballpark parking lots for fireworks, respect to the neighbors, as well as with new shade structures over the bleachers. Tailing flames or sparks can melt through those as well. So we're putting signs out starting tomorrow and closing gates for that. Also, Janine's not here, but I wanted to remind you of the Scottish Festival coming up next weekend. And that'll be Friday from 4 to 9, and then Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And again, we appreciate Parkview and their work, allowing us to do many events there, the bands, as well as indoor dance competitions for the weekend. So that's coming. Thank you.
Just so you know, council, that request came from some of the neighbors that live there adjacent to the parking a lot there by the soccer fields. And I got a hold of Carl and Scott Spencer, the chief of the fire department, and they're more than happy to accommodate those kind of things to help mitigate some of the problems that they have. So thank you.
Are we gonna keep the dogs out this year?
Out of the park, there's,
No, out of the park from the Scotts Festival.
they put that in their advertising.
It is announced and advertised, and I think we'll do our best to make sure
Yep.
that happens, but people do bring their dogs places that I wouldn't bring my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl, what's the latest on the tennis courts? Did we decide Neva
Yeah.
School District? And
We decided to match what we initially talked about a few years ago with that dollar amount, and the school district will cover the rest. So we'll build the 2 additional tennis courts at the high school. They will stub the lights, but we will not put lights in at this time. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Gives us some flexibility there. That's a good
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, I do like the flexibility. You mentioned no fireworks at the ball fields. I'm not really sure that they should be lighting fireworks off on city property anywhere other than in the streets. But what did you want?
We haven't restricted those before. We can restrict them, but something we haven't done in the past. Last year was the only year we restricted the parking there at the soccer fields at the request of Shawnee Vernon because of debris falling in the backyard.
So last year was the first year, but we have done it, but previous years we had not. And previous years, we also didn't have the new shades over. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right?
I
Where-
don't see how
where
we
people do
restrict
it.
from the property. It's publicly owned. I just don't see how we can restrict them from.
I mean, just the sign that says no fireworks in public parks, public recreation. I don't know, just to me.
Shade covers are really nice. We don't want to ruin them.
Right.
yeah, burn holes in
Yeah,
it.
and
there's a lot
and
of
I don't
other
know,
city
this would
parks
come
is
back to the
basically what
attorney.
I'm hearing.
If a fire originated there and spread to somewhere else, would we be on the hook at all for that?
Brandon,
Under
can
that.
you help us?
Fire chief, like, he expresses those concerns, I think we're on good ground that we can limit time that place.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just,
Damage.
Well, I'm just looking at other parks.
Has that been an issue? Have we had fireworks launched in the parks?
I don't know.
chief,
Come on up, chief. This
Thanks,
is the fire.
Carl.
Um,
They don't, a lot of them live in apartments.
So we can restrict wherever we'd like. We just need to put the signage up to let people know so we can enforce it. We'll have crews out, starting tonight. Cause you can light them 2 days before, the day of, and the day after on the celebrations. And so we'll have crews out enforcing, so we can restrict that. We can get signs up in the parks, especially if we want to protect those canopy structures like over the playground and bleacher areas. That's not a problem. We'll do what we can to get signs. I don't know if we'll be able to get signs for this weekend, but we'll work on it tomorrow morning.
And I don't know if this year is really necessary. I'm just saying, hey, maybe let's take a step back and look. If it's been a problem somewhere else, let's keep an eye on the other parks. And if it looks like it's something we need to go citywide, we'll put up permanent signs. You
Right.
know, it says
Yeah.
no fireworks in our parks. You know,
Yeah.
if we don't have a problem, why do we have to have curb something? I
Yeah.
just, again, it's publicly owned unless there's something that, there's
An
weeds
issue.
and stuff that could cause fires. The whole closure of that parking lot was just for the convenience of the citizens.
Right. It is because people are using that parking lot to discharge fireworks like they'd come to the city center or the old ballpark or, the houses are so close right there and it just falls in their backyard.
Yep.
And so they've asked.
Can't even have a barbecue, they get pelted.
Yeah.
That's the main reason there.
So I guess as your crews are out, if you guys have other trouble spots, then bring them to us and we can
I know
evaluate
we can
that.
go from there.
Yeah. We'll watch and look. We really haven't had many problems with, any of the parks.
Right, I've never
I think
seen
in
that.
all the years we've had one problem at Memorial Park and that was it. So it's been really good.
Okay.
I think as our density, these,
Yeah.
you get these more dense pockets and people are like, well, I don't want to launch them in my apartment complex. They go to a park. And
Mhm.
so these problems may grow.
Yeah, a lot of cities do encourage the citizens to go to the parks and have a great big event there that the citizens can go, and then they put in a metal dumpster for them to dump the debris in after. So, but we haven't really had a huge problem with our parks. Now, we don't want them to do it like at the Hollow Park and places like that, and
Right.
people don't, right? But we watch and patrol all those areas.
I see Memorial Park has a nice shade cover. I don't know.
Yeah, it does.
It might be worth, back there, the Parks Department maybe you want to send something out to them. Print, I don't care if they're a little paper sign and they go out near those shade structures. Say no fireworks within 500 feet of a shade structure.
Because there's enforcement, you know, if you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is opening up a whole thing for a bunch of departments, so.
Yeah.
We gotta really look at this before we jump in too much.
I think we need to
see if
step
it's even a
back.
problem.
Well,
And
But I'd hate to ruin their high dollar shade structures that.
We have people out for fireworks during the whole period of 4th and 24th and all the days around it. So we'll watch for them, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's one or two that usually ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Thanks, Chief.
it's in the next couple days. That's
Yeah.
a quick thing to do.
Yep.
I agree. Let's wait.
Okay. So, you know, all that's going on. We have people out patrolling, helping with that. We are going to issue citations to people that are doing in the areas that are restricted and illegal. The other is we have not closed Payson Canyon Park yet to fires. We typically follow suit with our forest district, and they have not closed our area yet. I anticipate before the 24th it will be, but we watch and patrol that, and we get called up once a week or so to go out and put up a campfire because somebody didn't put it out. But at least we're making sure they maintain them in the pits. We're not allowing them outside the pits. Up the canyon, you can still light a fire wherever you want, unfortunately, but that's federal. And then we're going to be doing a public press release for Utah County because of some of the fires we've had in Cedar Hills tomorrow with Forestry Fire and State Lands in Utah County to help educate the citizens a little bit, to remind them to be safe and responsible and keep our land safe. But so hopefully it's a quiet event. It was, you know, just a week and a half ago, we had shouldn't have been a fire at all, but we had ended up being 40 acres out at West Mountain from people shooting things they shouldn't shoot. So we patrol out there too, watch that. So
our annual West Mountain Fire.
Yep.
I'd heard you beat everybody else out there. Payson was out there, had it done before the county even showed up.
we usually get out before the state or the BLM or Forest Service or the county. Yeah, we try, and the canyon too.
Yes.
So yeah.
Rather get in trouble for putting out something than it
Oh, they
getting away.
chastise us for putting some of the fires up the canyon, but it's like, oh well, call the mayor. I don't care.
Yep. Yep.
I think you should let trees smolder for 16 days or whatever it was.
Right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Do we have any other staff who'd like to address this? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to council reports, starting with Council Hyatt. I'm starting with you again because
Festival was awesome.
This is just a reminder to use your mic.
Can you not hear me?
Please.
I'm talking loud.
But
The
it's- doesn't
recording
recording
can't hear you.
Goodness. Put them. The music festival was awesome. And my husband liked it, which was,
a plus.
it was awesome, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Council Moss.
I just want to say thanks to Kim and Debbie, right? I was going to work on Tuesday morning and somebody had left their washer and dryer on the corner of 930 West and 1400 South, just at a park. And so I called and they had it picked up by the time I came back from work. And so I just want to remind anyone who is watching, we don't leave our appliances at the parks for someone else to pick up.
What
That
does
was
that cost
just,
to take it to the
yeah.
dump?
Yeah.
I mean, is it more than $3?
No.
Isn't it just $3 to take it to the dump? Is it 5? Okay.
Yeah, just take your stuff to the dump or sell it to a neighbor or move it with you. We don't just dump things hoping someone else will take it because the city had to do it. But I want to thank everyone that took care of that. And then as always, I want to thank our police officers and our fire department. They are awesome and we are grateful for our first responders. And then everyone else too. Our staff is amazing. I'm amazed by our people in Payson City every day. So thanks, everybody. That's all I've got.
Thank you. I'd like to take the opportunity to report with the same theme that Council Moss did. We have some great city employees. I was informed by a citizen that there was a water leak up by Spring Lake Elementary. As I went up and checked it out, it was the pressurized water system and it was leaking quite badly. And the principal had got a hold of their custodian and he was there, but he didn't know how to do what needed to be done to turn that off. So I got a hold of Cam Phillips, and he was actually on vacation. He called the on-call guy that he had in his department, and I didn't get almost out of that parking lot before his on-call got there and was taking care of the problem. So thank you to our employees. Councilor Rowley.
Thanks, Mayor. If anyone's seen my washer and dryer, could they let me know? I'm kidding. I just want to, oh, shoot. I just want to thank all the staff. I want to give a shout out to Jill. A couple weeks ago, we sat down and had a long meeting, discussed everything she's working on, the Station area plan and hiring some new help. And I'm grateful for the developmental services. I'm thankful to Sean. We toured around the power plant and want to report to the council. If you guys don't know, the Caterpillar power generators are starting to show up and get set. So that's really exciting. And the footings are getting poured for the new building. That's a huge resource and asset to our residents in the future. So I'm really excited about that. And I wandered around and looked at the sewer treatment plant. That's looking pretty impressive. That's a lot of concrete. I'm excited for that. And I just want to thank all the residents and also happy Independence Day. I love this country. It's the best country on the planet. And I think we need to do more to identify ourselves as Americans. I think a lot of those other things and factions and parties we identify ourselves with is just noise. We are Americans first, and our values matter, optimism matters. And God bless this country. I'm happy to be here and a part of this city and this country and state. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
You bet. I'd like to add to the CAT generators. That's all in an effort, citizens, to keep our rates at a level that is acceptable, and so we don't get the big spikes up. That never seems to come down, but we want to keep them level. So that's all in an effort to do that. Okay, Councilor Hewlett.
Yeah, I was hoping the beautification committee would stay here so I could thank them and thank Ann for doing that. It's really nice for our yards to recognize good yards, and because it just makes the Payson so much nicer. So thank you very much. The other thing is to do with downtown. Fox 13 was here on Tuesday, and they were here for like a couple hours. They're going to do a special on the state Main Street program, but the state Main Street program brought them down to Payson because of what we've done down here. So there'll be a thing on Payson's Main Street too. I think it's the first airing is on Friday at 4 o'clock on Fox 13. And then to go along with that, our first Friday, so every Friday in the month, first Friday in the month, we have a downtown event. So it's going to be from 5 to 7 this coming Friday. So I encourage everybody to come and visit that. And it's really interesting because downtown, I've been down there a couple of times in the morning, like on a Tuesday morning. And it used to be, I could go down there, you wouldn't see anybody. When I was down there, there was probably 30 people that walked past me on that last Tuesday and the time before. So people are just going down there just to walk down there and see it. And so it's just fantastic. So thank you.
That was a perfect segue for me. I appreciate that. Thanks, Brian. I'm going to bring it back up, and I keep harping it. I think we need time limits on the parking on Main Street and the adjacent Utah Avenue. You go down there bright and early in the morning, and there's 30 cars parked on the Main Street. And I understand that the apartments are the problem, but there's other parking spots.
I don't know if there is. I think we wait and see if the parking lot alleviates that issue, which I hope it does.
But I've gone down there and I've seen people that I know work in businesses park in the primo spots and walk into the business. And if we set that as a 2-hour limit, they're not going to. They can't. And I know that this comes back to a policing issue, but sometimes self-policing, you see it, hey, that's a 2-hour parking spot. I need to get moving. I can't park here all day. and we can take that little bit of initiative and do that. And I think we're pretty close on the parking lot. I've seen the way government runs. It's going to take a long time to get signs up anyway. So
It was paved today, I think.
yeah, it might have been. I meant just to get the signs for 2-hour parking, but you know, I was in Australia and my mother was confused. She's like, "What are all these like P signs? You know, that half P, 4P or whatever?" And it was how many hours you could park. You know, half-hour parking, 4-hour parking, and that established it throughout. And I love a norm like that. And I don't know if we have any of those in the area that says that, you know, you just put it at the beginning. This is a 2-hour parking zone, and it's at the beginning of the street, and away you go. Just food for thought. And then just one other thing, just to had, I'm not gonna worry about that. We'll talk about it later. Anyway, all else is going well. And as far as performance, those that work and perform well in our city, Chief, we don't want the firefighters to ever have to work in our city. They're the only ones that can get away with doing nothing but preventative work. Fair enough, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Council Christensen. Okay. Go ahead and move on to F, action items. 4-Bay Bike Park Concept Plan Resolution. Kevin, you're up again. Thank you. Would like to excuse Councilor Rowley. He's got some obligations he has to meet.
So first on the slide is some pictures that we've collected from people who have done service up at the 4-Bay throughout the Okay, thank you. So this is just some of the groups that have done the service for us that added up to that over 120 hours this past year. So we applaud their commitment. What we're here to discuss, what I've handed to you is the formal presentation that was done by a company called Avid Trails. So what I'm going to present to you on the screen is kind of our own take on what that is. I pulled some of the information from here and other things. So the main purpose of this, as it says, is provide information to you about the plans for this bike skills park, seek acceptance of the plan, and then seek approval to execute on phase 1 of the trail build. So as I said, this is a lot of the information that was built by this company called Avid Trails. I'm sure everybody knows about 4-Bay, but I put a slide in there just to show what the piece of property looks like and everything. It's about 500 acres that the city has owned since 2001. Currently, we have about 12 miles of trails, and we're trying to add to that number. The proposal, so if you look at this piece of property, the bottom is going to the north. So in this picture, this is the northern part of 4-Bay, and that's the area that we want to propose for this bike skills park. This is the existing condition. If you look at these two pictures, the meadow that's on the top picture on the right is also the meadow that you see in the bottom. And that little triangle on the bottom picture, you can see that bare spot in kind of, let's see, right here in this picture is the same as this part right here.
So that meadow on both those, is that all in 4-Bay or is part of that private property?
Most of this meadow right here is on private property.
That's what I thought, okay.
And so most of what you see in this meadow is on private property. What the city owns is this upper bench going around on both sides.
Who owns that?
Regardless of who owns it, I really think we need to reach out to those two property owners and kind of try to to capitalize on that. It would really, really change what we can and cannot do. And I don't know if anybody in the city has reached out to them just to ask them if they would be interested. Be much better if they would donate it, but if they want to come up with a price or something that we can consider, maybe look at park tax funds or something to move forward with that. But I would love somebody as a
Or
city.
maybe even donate it with the tax write-offs. I mean, I don't know who they are. I don't know
Yeah.
what they need.
The last name's
I think it's just those two big ones are the only ones we're looking at. The other one, they've got houses and stuff on them. But
yeah.
just food for thought. And I just want to bring that up in a public meeting. I probably shouldn't, but I did.
Thank you. So as we're explaining, this is the view that you see when you're going up the Canyon Road for the most part. The proposal is to create 5 zones, and they're represented in each of these colors: a tech zone, a flow zone, a dual slalom where it's like you can race each other going through some switchbacks and such, and a short track. The middle part right there where it says the bike park core, that would be a place that is set up for parking. As you can see on the left-hand side, number 4 would be a place where trucks with horse trailers and such could park. And down at the bottom, number 3 is there's 52 parking spots for regular vehicles. The number 5 leaving the trail or leaving the trailer parking area would be a dedicated equestrian trail. At one time we did have some other things in there. I've crossed them off on the list over on the side, number 7 and number 13, which were pump tracks that the committee felt that there was probably a more appropriate place than up at Forebay for those type of pump tracks. So we've removed them from.
They'd fit better in a community park rather than in this overland park. So
Agreed. So this is the general concept of where most of this activity would start from. What we have in each of these zones, you can see that each of them have multiple trails, and the slalom up there at the top. We have the flow section. You can't see it very well, but maybe on your guides that I gave you, there's a black trail, a blue trail, and a green trail that are all where'd my mouse go? Right in here, there's a black one that you can sort of see up here, this blue one, and then this green one. Those are all the flow trails. The orange one is supposed to be climbing up to the top so you can go back down. And then of course the green one and the blue one down here in the tech zone, they'll have more rocks in it. They'll be more of a technical place for you to learn those skills.
So can I interject a little bit here? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So as part of the committee's responsibility is we come up with a vision, what it is we want to do, where we're headed, but everything that we do has to come back to council for approval to do these. So we'd need approval for these trails. Is that what we're after here? Right.
Yeah.
And that would allow us to start concept. Can we move forward with these concepts? Find the funding that we need to get the finalized designs and things of that nature. So that's why they're being presented to you today, is to make sure that we can move forward and that we're okay with this. Most of this, in fact, I think isn't all of it except for the horse trail would be horses. This is for bikes.
Yes.
Is there hiking trails in there? I don't remember.
The horse and is a hiking trail too.
Horse equestrian. They're most of them are dual purpose, but they get really windy and twisty like this for the point of giving them the opportunity to practice their bike skills. The black trail would actually have jumps where they would have to clear obstacles to even ride down it. So not necessarily something you would want to to hike up if you got to go around big bike jumps, but
As you mentioned, that the yellowish or orange trail would be a multi-directional trail up and down, hike and bike.
right.
The equestrian trail actually wraps around most of the bike trails, so they're not crossing. And that would be a hike or a hoof and boot, kind of is what the people use.
Term.
Hike it, you can use your horses on it, but the intent is that we wouldn't mix the equestrian and bike there. But the flow trails, they would be one directional trails downhill. And so, yeah, you wouldn't have hikers or equestrian on those. But
So you can cut loose and you just go as fast as your heart desires coming down off. of
right.
there.
Again, Scott wants more revenue, and so
Yeah.
We'll follow you.
I have designated ambulance parking spot.
So the point that I want to make also is that the white trail that you see right here is existing trails we already have. This is Wakara. Down towards the bottom, you see a little bit of even flow. So we are tying in, this proposal is to tie in the existing trails to the new trails as well. So any other questions about that one or comments? This is what we came up with on our phase one in our committee meeting that we want to present right now. And that is these two trails. It's the equestrian trail and that orange trail, looks kind of yellow on the screen, but that orange trail that would connect to Wakara. The equestrian, of course, does not meet up with any of the existing hiking or biking trails. It goes up there and allows the horses to get up to the higher country. Yeah,
It's
that's
kind of the horses are a two-edged sword is the biggest problem. Forbay is a great place for beginners to learn to handle a horse and to get in there and spend some time. Bicycles and horses sometimes don't mix very well, especially when the ground is wet. The horses can destroy a bike trail in a matter of minutes. And so by dedicating some loops, some trails that are more enticing to our equestrian riders, it helps to alleviate some of those crossovers that are problematic. But we want it to be somewhere for everybody to enjoy. And we're overdue for the equestrian trail for sure.
Another thing too, with on these, this phase one, we have grant money to do most of this in phase one, the horse trail and the other trail.
I think the two trails that you're looking at right there would be really close to 2 miles of trails. The presentation that you have in front of you, it talks about a comparison with a place that was built close to Eagle Mountain, Firefly. And when we're talking about the flow trails, our trails would be a little more aggressive as far as average length would be 3,000 feet, where theirs are about 2,000. And their elevation drop is 150 feet, and ours would be closer to 250 feet. So that would be a later phase that we would address that.
I was just going to mention the equestrian trail that you can't see would wrap around Wakara, go up to the Forbay Pond. And then at that point, there's the old trail and or road that goes up to Big Tree. And that the intent would be then they could ride up, like Brett said, into the high country and go that way.
And also that's a good hiking trail too.
Yeah. And knowing that, I mean, there's no access from the road at this point, but they can still park in the Questar parking lot or the Cattlemen's and 100 yards away, drop down into our property and then get on that trail from there, which is where they're parking generally at this point.
So that being said, we think that we could do this with minimal development in that bike park core and get the trails established there, find out what kind of use that we get and go from that point.
I think it's been a great move to get it kind of looked at as the broad spectrum. And then to phase it out, I think is a good way to go. To try to eat the elephant all at once might be a little bit much. So I'm excited to see this kind of to give that little bit more. Working on interpretive signs as well and things like that. Brian is amazing at getting grants and seeking things out for us. So we appreciate that. And Jill is doing a great job of still juggling everything over in her department, which is part of this. So, but I think she's ignoring me. Either that or she's contracted that Dave disease we talked about.
So once again, just to reiterate, what we're doing is we want you to approve allocating that north section of Four Bay for the skills park. Approve the concept plan that we have that's in front of you, and then authorize this phased approach and let us execute on phase one. So
we'd be obligated to phase one, and it sounds like we have grant money for that. But the concept is what we would okay too, as you get further into the concepts.
correct, yes.
The phases.
And it can be, I don't think we're locked into anything that you're seeing on here. It's all changeable at this point.
Okay.
So any other questions that you might have on this or anything?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. And I kind of call this our mountain bike park, but and I love everything Fort Bay's doing, but I'd like to make sure that we're making this multi-use as we get with the pond and things like that. So more people than maybe 10% of the population of Payson can use this. So that's just my plug, but I like everything about this whole concept doing this piece. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
See, Travis, that's 2 people that want the pond fixed up there. Got one more and you're done.
I don't get to vote, but I'd vote for it if I could.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Okay, any other questions, council? I think this is a great project that, again, I don't get to vote, but I certainly would support the concept in doing the phase one, the horse and the other trail that we have funds for. So, okay, well, I'm ready for a motion on this item unless there's other discussion.
I'll make the motion if nobody wants. I like to make the motion that we approve the 4 Bay bike park concept plan as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded, roll call vote starting with Council Hyatt,
Yes.
Council Moss,
Yes.
Council Hewlett.
Yes.
Council Christensen.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the part of the meeting that is G, a work session on inland port. Dave?
Yes, Mayor Council, thank you. We had a meeting a little while back with some of the staff and a couple of council members, and we have Scott Wolford here with the Utah Inland Port. We thought it'd be good for him to present to you kind of what this is and how it could maybe benefit our community. So let's turn the time over to Scott, and it is a work session, so we can have questions if you have and make this a little bit of dialogue. Thanks.
Council, just so you know, the inland port has changed drastically. Sometimes it's got a bad name. This is not that presentation.
This is a good one.
This is a good one.
Do we call this the new and improved Inland Port Authority?
Greatly improved.
Mayor Council, thank you. Again, my name is Scott Wolford. Is that? It is. I'm the Vice President for the Business Development Team at the Utah Inland Port Authority. I have a presentation. I would almost rather that you interrupt more than I talk so that we can address what questions you have, but I'll give kind of a brief overview about the Port Authority, our history, where we've been and where we are today, and kind of what it would look like to become part of a Port Authority project area. I have with me on Zoom Executive Director Ben Hart and 2 Associate Vice Presidents, Jenna Draper, who covers Southeast Utah for us, and Lynn Mayer, who covers our statewide core team. A brief history. In 2018, the Utah legislature, through a bill, created what they called the jurisdictional land of the Utah Inland Port Authority. It was about 16,000 acres in mostly the northwest quadrant of Salt Lake City, a little bit of West Valley, a little bit of Magna City, and a little bit of the county itself. Depending on who you ask, the legislature said we tried to talk to Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake City says they just did this over our objections, regardless it was created. And the city was so happy that they sued us. That gets a laugh in a lot of cities. It's a good one. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV, but as I understand it, an issue was whether the legislature could create, and we're a Title 11 entity, we're a public entity, that looked and enacted some of the powers that a municipality normally would, but we're really not a city. That Title 11 code is kind of the island of misfit toys of public entities. And it took 3 years, the Port Authority winning at both the district and the Utah Supreme Court level. So we have passed judicial scrutiny. 2 of the 3 findings were found in our favor, and the third was rendered moot through an interlocal agreement with Salt Lake City. We've tried to be good partners with Salt Lake and collaborate as we build out that part. In 2022, our board was shifted a little bit. We went from, I think, 11 members. I can't remember. It was tough. It was a big board, down to 5, and brought in new executive director Ben Hart, who came to us from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And Director Hart said, we're just a little bit backwards. Instead of focusing on public investment on logistics facilities, what we need to do is our primary focus needs to be on creating projects of regional significance, regional economic significance. And then on the back end, we'll right size any public investment in logistics facilities to the volume that's created through that investment, through those companies, through those jobs, through that volume. And we'll right size what that investment looks like. Since that time, we have, I'm going to bounce around a little bit, had resolutions from 40 communities across the state, with the counties that have asked us in, it's shaded in green, and the cities in black dots. Last week, we created our 14th project area in Cedar Fort and Fairfield, called the Pony Express Inland Port Project Area. And you can see we kind of dot the state now. This represents over 132,000 acres of developable property across the state. Our largest project area in central Utah in Juab County is over 40,000 acres, and our littlest one is in Grantsville, Utah, which is just a couple of hundred acres. There's no right size to do this. We have built out a team where every project area is assigned an associate vice president to be their, I don't want to say one throat to choke, let's say personalized contact. And we help those communities build out the vision that they would like to do. The main tool we have, again, the creation of a project area, relies on increased property tax value in the areas that the city council or the county commission designate. Our code calls it tax differential. Everywhere else it's called tax increment. There's a very good reason ours is a different word. It's the exact same thing. I'm not going to go into it. But the way this works, if you think about 3 separate streams of that property tax revenue, the first is whatever you're getting today. So if we think about a greenfield, undeveloped, it's just weeds and dirt parcel, you get several dozen dollars a year of property tax revenue. That value is frozen for 25 years. The increase is split into 2 streams. 25% of the increase continues to flow to the taxing entities at the same mill rates as normal. 75% comes to the Port Authority, but it can't be removed from the project area. So it's designated for investment back into the project area. So with those funds, with that differential, the city council would say, we need infrastructure. We need the roads, we need the sewer, we need the culinary, we need whatever is in the project area or has a nexus to the project area, or an incentive to bring in a desired industry. So again, 3 streams, existing tax base, 25% of the increase still flows through normal, and 75% is reinvested into the area.
One thing you might explain, that 25 and 75% right now, well, the 25% goes to the whole 100% is going to the school district, pretty much the school district, but now they're going to go down to 25% of what they're bringing in, and we're going to get the 75%. So instead of going to basically the school district, it's going to be coming to the Port Authority, which translates going to the city.
Yeah, when we chat with school districts, there's always a little bit of concern. They say, you're going to take our money. And we tell them that money doesn't exist. But we have to do a but for analysis. But for the investment into that area, those businesses aren't coming. But for that incentive, those businesses aren't coming. And that 25%, again, when we attract the right businesses, becomes significant. This chart right here shows in the light green on top, a projection, a conservative projection of what we think we're going to get to reinvest in these project areas across the state. But the dark green is the increase to the taxing entities. And the administrator for the Nebo School District, he told us after we'd had a few meetings and had a little bit of road in the rearview mirror, he said, Scott, it took me a while to figure it out, but we learned that 25% of a whole lot of money is way more than 100% of almost nothing. What they're getting for those unimproved sites in the school district, the city, the county, all the taxing entities today is nothing or nearly nothing. And what we want to do is increase those values so that 25% is very valuable. And at the end of the 25 years, it all returns to the normal taxing entities. 100% correct, Mayor.
What does this do to the property taxes around everything else? Is this specific just to the project taxing it? Or are all the citizens' property taxes going to go up? And that's where this number is extrapolated from.
Nobody's taxes change. The rate doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the valuation of the property. When it goes from dirt to a manufacturing facility, a data center, something else, you go from $100 a year in valuation that you're going to get to tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of valuation. Correct. Well, and the project doesn't pay a different tax rate. All that changes the value of what that, correct.
But I would think that the value of one piece of property changing is going to affect all industrial pieces around it, which
it may, but again, if where we like to be is where it's still just dirt, and dirt adjacent to something neat is kind of still just dirt according to the county. Put something on it and it starts to become valuable. To that point, Mayor, good segue. I didn't set that up. I promise I didn't. One of the things that we've seen, and everybody hates this chart, but I love it, so I'm going to show it. Again, we have 14 projects areas statewide, and what we've seen overwhelmingly is the communities we work with create the project area, and then they come back to us quickly and say, you know what? We've got an area over here we'd love your help in. So the concentric circles represent not just that we've created a project area, but they've come back, passed another resolution in a public meeting, and asked us to increase the site or add areas in other spots of their community that we can then put our statutory tool set to work. It's a delightful relationship. Any questions, we're happy to furnish names of all the communities we work with. Again, we have 40 resolutions, 40 invitations across the state of elected officials that want to work with us. Questions there? Do you love the chart? Am I the only one? Am I the only one that loves this chart? Right, thank you. We work in partnership with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Economic Development Corporation of Utah, along with a host of other trade organizations to market and recruit your area. And again, because it functions similar to an RDA, but you start on step 5, we're very agile. And so as we respond on your behalf, we check with you. A request comes in saying, this type of industry is looking in Utah. Is this something that Payson City would be interested in? Yes, no, maybe. If you say yes, then we create a marketing packet to send back and say, you should come to Payson. This would be a great place for your business. And we're doing that recruitment all over the state. To date, we have commitments of over $2.3 billion for investment in our communities, over 3,700 jobs and over 30 million square feet of industrial space. And we feel like we're just figuring out how to get this thing to work. Mayor. We would love to help market Payson City. We think this is a wonderful community with a wonderful capacity to recruit top industries, top jobs. And frankly, if you could stop driving to work on I-15 you're gonna get a lot of life back. That's our goal. Keep our folks close. Let's get our cargo, our things moving around on rail or on other areas that we're not clogging up our freeways. So that's our interest. We're going to create this project of regional economic significance, and then we're going to help align with a statewide logistics strategy, get trucks off the road, use our rail resources more efficiently, use better use of our air cargo capacity as well. A project area requires 4 statutory conditions. It has to have a public good, a public benefit, it has to be economically feasible, and it has to align with the goals and objectives of the Port Authority. The process is quick and agile. We, for a government entity, we feel very, very responsive. The first step is that a land use authority requests through a resolution passed in an open public meeting for the Inland Port Authority to create a project area. We then work with the community representatives to draft a plan and budget, which is a governance or maybe a guiding document is a better way to say it. Where do you want us? The areas do not have to be contiguous. You can pick little parcels around the state. I'm not going to make fun of Richfield, but it looks like someone shot the map of their city with a shotgun and then they just said everywhere the BB touched, that's where we want you. Some communities have very tight areas they want us. Either one is fine. Our board through two.
I got a quick question on that. So
Yes, sir.
drafting that project area and all the budget and all that, is that something that the inland port pays for, or does the municipality help pay for that, or how does that work?
Our staff invests the administrative bandwidth to create that. We have our CFO that does the budget. We have our logistics team that does some analysis. So no, there's other than sunk cost personnel, there's no cost to either entity. Again, it's adopted in a 2-meeting cycle where it's first presented to our board, allowed to have the interim about a month for any public comment or input, and then our board creates. And then again, over the next 25 years, we recruit and measure and report back to the community on how that project area optimizes and develops. A couple of things that I want to hit on what we cannot do. The Port Authority has no land use authority. We can't grant construction permits. We can't change zoning. All those powers remain with this body, which is a wonderful constraint on us. You're turning over funds to us, but we really can't expend them anywhere except where you want them. And we love that. We think it creates a wonderful partnership where Payson City holds the cards and we become an administrative agent to do what you want us to do. And again, we're going to trick you because we're going to align what we're doing with that logistics strategy on the back end and hopefully make your businesses hyper competitive in the global marketplace. Any questions here? You guys are either nice or you hate me bad. I can't tell. And that's the elevator pitch. That's the nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mayor, turn your mic on.
You know, you may have mentioned, I just missed it. It is very, very flexible. We can make an adjustments to the area that we want to identify as the workable area, and we can reduce it or expand it. Right?
Either one. I would say the only yes, Mayor, 100% correct. The only constraint would be if we had added a parcel and it had been triggered, there was a business there, and there was debt incurred through, say, a public infrastructure district or bond payment, our board would be reticent to remove that from the project area.
We've already made that commitment.
Correct. But if there was no commitment and you said, we don't think that's going to be part of the Port Authority project area, great.
Okay, thank you.
So I know this came up, that we were having discussion today about what lands might go well in this project. So one of the questions come up, well, let's add more truck traffic because our roads are already crowded in that. And so as we talk about that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we already have it zoned industrial and we can, if we say we don't want a Walmart service center here, then we can kind of control how much traffic we're going to have through this process, right?
Yes, sir. 100% correct.
Plus we have the funding to take care of some of the infrastructure needs if that is the case.
Also correct. And I would add, one of the nice things about the Port Authority being a statewide entity is that we leverage our relationships around the state. For example, in Spanish Fork, we partially funded a UDOT survey to optimize their shared freeway structure, freeway on-ramp, off-ramp, to make sure that we're partitioning our commercial versus our, let's call it civilian traffic. Inherently, creating a project area doesn't create any more traffic. Now, certainly we're going to try to recruit, but as we recruit businesses, that's one of the things we ask. Well, what kind of traffic does this add? And this part of our community wouldn't accommodate that, and this over here might. But it's not something that we will get ahead of the council. We're not picking that for you. We're just bringing opportunities and trying to market for what you'd like. There are industries that are very light with traffic. There are industries that are very heavy. And we'll kind of negotiate with you both early, picking targeted industries, and also as we go, what your appetite is for that.
Yeah, a lot of times as growth comes, you know, if we did it the traditional way, different than with the inland port, the improvements lag behind.
Yes, sir.
And this is a way to keep up with those needed improvements.
It is a very agile tool set. And every community is a little bit different. Spanish Fork has a very significant lift in infrastructure. Little Garland, Utah didn't. Garland opted to give a very generous incentive to bring Lakeshore Learning in. They've just completed and have opened a 1.2 million square foot industrial facility, mostly distribution, a little bit of manufacturing. They've hired 400 people, and in a community of 3,000, to get 400 new jobs in that area that are benefited union wage jobs is community altering. Again, it's a very, very flexible tool set that can be employed in a lot of different ways.
So what incentives can you give besides what GOEO does already for employment post?
So where GOEO's incentives are tied to income tax, the port authorities are tied to property tax. So it's a stackable incentive. A company can elect to have both. Where that becomes very valuable is a company that maybe pays both high wage jobs and also has significant investment in the cost of the building or the equipment in the building to build. And we're nationwide. Nobody's doing it like this as quickly and as agilely as we can. So where that's stackable, boy, we can make a good pitch to get good companies to come.
So if we really wanted a really good company to come, we can give them incentive, giving some of their property taxes back to them.
Correct. And one of the big differences between this and an RDA and what we hear around the state is we've got a great RDA. In the first couple of years, it was great, but it's 16 years old now. And so we can only offer a 4-year incentive. We have the ability to trigger by completion. Every parcel can trigger individually. And so we'll say you're going to get this percentage back, 10, 20, 30%. Again, up to the community what you want to do over the full 25 years. So we can offer the full incentive, which kind of serves as a pair of golden handcuffs to keep them here, keep them in the community.
So from some of the communities you work with, what might be a downside to this for a community?
Councilman, they just get sick of winning. It's just really rough. It is a 25-year relationship. I struggle to say there's a downside, but it is a 25-year relationship. And when we're committing to some debt service to make that happen, you're obligating future city councils with that relationship. And I understand that some people might be concerned about that. I've struggled to see a significant downside to this, but it is a partnership with a state entity. And again, we highly encourage or would be happy to make available any of our partners across the state that we've worked with for you to call and do your own assessment.
As far as I can see, the benefit of having a 25-year relationship is that benefit that we get to be linked with an entity that helps us to grow responsibly.
We love it, Mayor. Our team loves being involved with the local economic development, building out the communities, and instead of everything being right on that core Wasatch Front community, building out a little bit out from there and bringing good jobs to those areas.
Maybe explain a little bit about the debt service and the obligation of the city when we go out and do like a bond for, we don't do the bond, but you guys do the bond for infrastructure or things like that. Maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Absolutely. There are a host of ways can do this. I'll explain what I would consider the most common. The Port Authority or the city could sponsor what's called a public infrastructure district. It's a quasi-governmental entity. It has a governance board, sometimes some city council on it. In Spanish Fork, that's the case. The PID becomes the entity that incurs the debt, usually through a government bond, but there are some other ways to do it as well. So for the build of the infrastructure, and there's usually a delayed payment to allow some time for those property values to go up to generate the revenue to pay that back. Should the development not occur in enough speed to pay that debt, it's the PID that's on the hook and responsible for that debt, not the city, not the Port Authority. So we'll pay a little bit higher interest rate than we would if it were a secured bond through, say, sales tax, but there's no risk nor cost incurred onto Payson City or onto the Inland Port Authority.
So who would be the entity that runs the PID? Would it be the board? Would that be the inland port, or would it be some of the city, or who would actually be on that board?
We have a euphemism in the Port Authority that if you've seen one project area, you've seen one project area, and they all do it a little bit differently. In Tooele County, it's all development that governs their PID. In Spanish Fork, there are 2 members of the city, 2 members of the Port Authority that sit on that governance board, and then a 5th member. I can't remember who the 5th member is. I think a development group. But there's lots of different ways to parse that. We don't have a strong preference. We have a chief compliance officer that makes sure all the PIDs that either we sponsor or that we pledge differential to or that are in our project areas remain in the good graces of the Lieutenant Governor's office, make sure that reports are filed on time. But no, we don't have a strong preference on how that governance works, as long as we're pledging property tax to what would be appropriate projects.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we've had with PIDs is if it's all turned over to just a development, there's really no control. But when you talk about the city could be part of, the inland port could be part of, that makes a big difference to me.
We really love that model. We think it's great.
That begs the question, if that entity's not doing well, there must be a reason for that entity not doing well and producing what was projected to produce. Is the inland port able to address that at all to help rectify that situation?
Absolutely. If let's say they weren't hitting benchmarks of construction and they were asking to pledge differential to that, we could certainly look and say, oh, boy, you haven't built anything. We're not gonna pay the debt service. Those things are messy. I'm not smart enough in that type of law to tell you how that'd shake out. But yes, that's one of the reasons that we audit regularly what those PIDs are doing and how they work.
That would be one of the benefits of the 25-year relationship.
Correct. And I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. Your city staff works really hard. They have a ton of things to do. We see this all over the state. And when a recruitment project comes in and they say, we have 1,000 questions that if you want to be considered for this company to locate in your city, drop everything you're doing and spend the next 2 days answering these questions for us. We've done this 358 times on behalf of Utah communities. We've gotten really good at it. We're really fast at it. And part of the reason that we receive a general fund appropriation is to jumpstart this very thing. So when we call, instead of spending 2 days getting answers together, Jenna Draper calls and says, hey, economic development director, city manager, city councilman over economic development, do you want to chase this one? Yay or nay? And when you say yes, our team kicks into action and responds on your behalf. We take over that administrative bandwidth so you don't have to. Again, we won't get ahead of you, but you've turned 2 days of work into a 3-minute phone call.
I like that because I'm responding to the RFIs, so I love it.
We'd be very excited to work with you, Councilman.
Any further questions?
Hey, Scott.
Yes, sir.
This is Ben. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Really well.
Hey, I just want to pipe in. Council and Mayor, thank you for having us. My name is Ben Hart. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Inland Port Authority. I had some duties closer to home or else I would have been there personally tonight. I just want to echo what Scott has said and really that when we form this partnership, it is a true partnership. We're going to be with you every step of the way to help make your economic vision a reality. We don't go over the lines in terms of what you want. I just want to give you assurance. My background is in local economic development. I worked at Layton City starting in 2006, many years ago. Ran their RDA and local economic development processes. The ability and what attracted me to this job was the ability of what the port had to bring, and the contributions we could make to the city and what your vision is. And so I feel very confident that as we do look at this partnership and potentially move forward, that you're going to have an excellent partner in the port. We respect the city boundaries. The one downside, I'll answer what Scott didn't, and I think it's one of the things that kind of resonates. We heard it from the mayor of Cedar Fort last week. She said, or I think it was Fairfield, Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, but she said, I like everything about the port. She said, the only thing I don't like is your name. She said, I wish you guys could change your name to something else. And we've tried. We've taken a swing or two at that. It has not happened. And part of that is because they still want us to keep a logistics focus. But with regards to who we are, there is some explaining to do on the name. There's no question about that. But when you look under the surface, we think you're really going to like what that partnership looks like, what we can bring to the table. The other thing I just want to allude to is we look at that I-15 corridor going through southern Utah County. I think Payson is incredibly well positioned to really harness your vision for what you want your community to be economically. I think you're going to be able to call the shots more than you think you will, especially as we look at, whether it's high wage jobs that you want, whether it's capital expenditure you want. I think you're really going to be able to call some of your own shots economically. The port becomes an extension of that again. And I think we were down in Cedar City yesterday. This was very apparent. We're creating centers of economic strength. We don't want people leaving your community to have to find work. We want people to be able to find meaningful employment right in Payson. And I think you've got the opportunity to do that. The more people you've got on your team working together, the more likely that becomes reality. And so I just want to say you guys are doing everything right in Payson. We've long admired this city, and we feel like there's an opportunity here for a tremendous and wonderful partnership. Obviously, we'll take your lead as to timing, when and where, but we feel like you've got some great things lined up, and we're excited to be able to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we, as you say, we're positioned well. We've got MTech, a trades college that's going to be opening shortly. So we'll have a good pool of workforce as well.
One thing I'd like to add too is we reached out a couple of years ago, and it's really nice to see the changes because they told us we had to make a whole regional area with Spanish Fork and things like that, and so we just kind of dropped it. And I'm glad there's changes because now we can see that it's really going to benefit us a city like Payson.
Should you opt to further this, we'd be happy to provide a sample resolution of inviting the Port Authority in. I would ask, but certainly not demand, that pass a clean resolution without parcels listed, because inevitably other interested parties will come to you and say, actually, we want some of that Port Authority as well. And if you put parcels on it, you keep having to re-resolve, get all the parcels you want. Again, a commitment that we won't include anything that you don't want in there, but it sure makes it easier to get that created.
So the beginning thing would be a resolution, but we aren't having identified properties yet. Do the resolution, then we can go forward from that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think it's a no-brainer. I've told you that in our other meeting. It's a wonderful opportunity that we need to research further.
Wonderful. We will be at your
council. Any disagreeing voices?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
Before we adjourn, we have 2 items of a closed session to talk about potential purchase of property.
Okay, council's given me the authority to go ahead and adjourn to a closed session.
I'll make a motion we adjourn to a closed session.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll say, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And the date is the 2nd, July 2nd at 7:28.
And the items are?
The items are property, right? Just property. Okay, property purchase.
I
was.
Council Moss. And all in favor again?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We'll adjourn to closed session.